I know that solar power works because it's been powering my house and charging my car since 1990. I know that wind power works because I've owned a wind turbine that's been putting out many homes worth of wind power, clean, green power since 1985. So we do have alternatives.
I come from Union Avenue Elementary School, and I come to tell you about the problem that we have in Earth. We are burning too much fuel and causing the air to be dirty, and the oil that we take out of the ground starts to spill and spoil the water.
We need our electricity to come from renewable sources like solar panels and wind turbines.
Think of what we can do as a nation if every home in America had a home energy audit. Everybody that wanted a home energy audit went and did it. Every business that wanted one went and did it, and did those things that they could afford. It's an interesting list I hear from people sometimes. I can't afford solar panels, fancy ones like you. I can't afford an electric car like the one I drive today. And I say to them, neither could I when I started in 1970. What is that list of things that you can do? That's a list that I want to hear.
There's 13,000 people working in the oil and gas fields. Only 13,000 people for about 75% of California's oil. By contrast, the solar industry, not yet 2% of California's electricity, has 45,000 people working in the California solar industry. Ban fracking now, and yesterday that's what's going down in LA after nobody said it could be done. So give yourselves a hand.
And I applaud my friend Paul Koretz and all the people here in the city of LA, and Joe, all the great city council members for banning fracking in the city of Los Angeles. What a victory.
Jam, this traffic jam. How I hate to be late, hurts my motor to go so slow. Time to get home, I'll stop and be cold. Damn, this traffic jam.
This is not a walk, it's a march. Yes, this is a march, and we are marching because we are in the midst of a crisis. It's not a crisis down the road, it's happening now. And we need to, I mean, here you're all awake. There's so many more people that need to be woken up. We have enlightened political officials here in Los Angeles and elsewhere, but we need to wake up the political community and the business community as to why this is a crisis and why we need to act now to address it.
Ain't no power like the power of the sun, because the power of the sun don't stop. Say what?
Marches often start in March. He mentioned the Gandhi's Salt March. The suffrage march in 1913 also started in March. The Civil Rights March from Selma to Montgomery started in March, happened in March. And the Great Peace March of 1986 started in March, on March 1st, in LA.
Global nuclear disarmament in 1986. We went the distance on that one, so
we walked across the country together 30 years ago. Basically.
A friend of mine, Trace Wyron.
Oh yeah, we know Trace.
Yeah. That peace march had a huge impact on the peace movement. Not too many years later, we accomplished a nuclear test ban. We saw improved U.S.-Soviet relationships. I have no doubt that this march can have the same kind of impact.
It doesn't seem like it does anything, but you never really know where the ripples are going to end.
That's one of the main things I learned on the Peace Walk, was just how an action like this, just shaking somebody's hand. I remember when we got to Washington, D.C. after 9 months, I had people come up to me and say, "I'm here," and I didn't recognize them. And it was someone I had talked to in a coffee shop in a small town, you know, in the middle of the country. And there they were. And I talked to thousands of people like that. So it has an impact, person to person.
Join us, not just for today, not just for California, but join us in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, all across the country. And no matter what, join us in Washington, D.C. on November 1st, just a couple days before the midterm elections, to make it clear that we want action on the climate crisis and we want it now. Thank you.
We have the shirt for him. 9 months to Washington?
8 months.
Oh, 8 months.
Come on, that's enough.
999,999.
This is something about our very existence, our species, how we exist on this planet. And if we're not willing to fight for that, if we're not willing to put everything we have on the line for that, then I don't know if we even deserve to be here. So I think we need to fight for this with everything we've got, and thank you to everyone who is marching all the way to DC, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well,
I have 6 grandchildren, and you know, it's if we don't do something about the climate, they're not going to have a world to grow up in.
Do you get the veterans involved?
You know, I haven't really focused on that. I've done a lot of work with veterans, and I'm part of a group called Veterans for Peace. And I think that they're working on the climate issue also.
Right. I mean, given the fact that they say climate is the biggest crisis that's going to cause a lot of conflict.
Well, and the military has really been very aware of the climate issue in terms of the security threats that it poses, but also in terms of just providing fossil fuel to run the military. I mean, to get a gallon of gas to Afghanistan, I read somewhere it takes like 50 gallons to get it there. And so they're moving into the renewable area just in order to be able to do the job that we assigned them to do. So you get climate change. The greatest change of climate change in some ways is the wars that it's going to create over resources.
Exactly. Well, have a great march.
Thank you.
Cheers. What's your name?
Jim Driscoll, and I'll be there to greet him in D.C., which is where I'm from.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Se siente, el pueblo está presente. Se ve, se escucha, el pueblo está en la lucha.
So you guys are out here today
for the Earth. The flag says it all. That's our home. The only one we got. We're all on that. That's where we all are, and we got to protect the mother because she's taking care of us. We got to take care of her for sure.
So a week, huh? Where does that take you? You're starting where and going where?
Well, we're starting here, right now, today, and we're going as far as it takes us. I'm going to bail off in Riverside someplace, Redlands or so.
I'm walking, I think, if my foot holds up, to downtown LA today.
So having done the Peace March, what do you think that accomplished and that this will accomplish?
Wow.
What did accomplish?
How long is this documentary?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, we're not on that nuclear abyss anymore. I mean, we're backed away from that, and now we got to back away from this crisis, which is just as important as the nuclear arms race, just as idiotic and insane as the nuclear arms race was in the 80s. This fracking and tar sands, it's insane to keep pulling this poisons out, the carbon out of the ground and pumping it into the air using poisonous methods. It's crazy.
Ain't no power like the power of sun, cause the power of sun don't stop.
Escucha, escucha, estamos en la lucha.
Wilmington has high rates of cancer, bronchitis, and asthma, along with other illnesses, because we are a colored community. It's no secret. We are a frontline community, meaning that when climate change becomes a problem, we get hit first. And this makes climate change personal for all of us.
What does it say?
Consequence! CO2 is consequences to our health. Causes like cancer, also defects to us people.
Our teacher, Ms. Amal from our school, she told us to come for like the march to help support.
Because we just finished learning about all this bad stuff that's put into our community, and she was telling us about this march.
Yeah. You feel good about it?
Yeah. Making history.
I am tired of constantly hearing about my friends and teachers having health problems just from living here. I'm tired of hearing about the countless refinery or toxic facility workers who are being exposed to harsh and dangerous chemicals because they're trying to support their families. If we want to tackle the threat of climate change, we need to start at home and with ourselves, because climate change is personal and affects each and every one of us. By participating in this march, we are already a couple steps ahead. Thanks, guys.
Fossil fuels have got to go. We've all got to come together. You know, we're all connected, and we're all interdependent, and we all got to do this together.
And there's no room for nuclear power in that answer either.
Oh yeah? Some would beg to differ, like James Hansen.
Let him bail out Fukushima for a month and see what he says. 2.5 will be my speed. Just 2.5 miles. In our faith, the whole purpose for me is to help make this a better world. And this is really important. We have a saying, L'Ador Vador, which is from generation to generation. And we try to take that responsibility very seriously. And so when my grandkids ask me, Grandpa, what did you do for this problem? I want to be able to stand up there, good conscience, and say, I tried. And we're trying to get a lot of other people to do the same thing. Steve Fox, the Green Team from Temple, Isaiah.
Ain't no power like the power of the sun. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the sun. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the sun.
off a bit, right?